There's something undeniably magnetic about the idea of lost treasure, golden relics waiting in forgotten tombs, legendary artifacts swallowed by the sea, or entire cities buried beneath centuries of dust. Think of the Rosetta Stone, once just another slab of rock lost to time until it unlocked the secrets of ancient Egypt, or King Tutankhamun's tomb, hidden for over 3,000 years before its dazzling riches saw the light again. These discoveries remind us that history's greatest treasures often lie just out of sight, whispering to us from the shadows of the past. But what about the ones that haven't been found? The ones still out there, waiting? Picture this: vast hoards of gold hidden by paranoid emperors, sacred objects of unimaginable power tucked away by secretive priests, or even entire libraries filled with knowledge that could rewrite history. These aren't just myths, they're real, tangible mysteries scattered across the globe, some documented in ancient texts, others hinted at by crumbling maps or half-remembered legends. And today, we're setting out on a journey to uncover them. From the depths of the Mediterranean to the jungles of South America, from the deserts of the Middle East to the forgotten corners of Europe, 30 legendary treasures still lie hidden, each with a story that defies time. This isn't just a list, it's an expedition. Some of these treasures are so valuable they've driven men to madness in their pursuit. Others are so well hidden that modern technology still can't pinpoint them. And a few, they might not even be what we expect, because the greatest treasure isn't always gold or jewels. Sometimes it's the truth, the kind of truth that shakes our understanding of the ancient world. So, if you've ever wondered what's still out there, lurking in the dark, waiting for the right explorer to stumble upon it, stick around, because history's greatest secrets are about to come into the light. Deep in the labyrinth of tunnels beneath the Philippine mountains, a fortune in gold might still be waiting, hidden in the final days of World War II by a desperate empire on the brink of collapse. This is the legend of Yamashita's gold, named after General Tomoyuki Yamashita, the Japanese commander accused of overseeing one of history's greatest treasure stashes. As Allied forces closed in, the story goes, truckloads of loot, gold bars, stolen artifacts, and priceless jewels plundered across Southeast Asia were sealed inside booby-trapped caves and underground chambers. Soldiers swore they buried it. Prisoners whispered of forced labor digging those tunnels. Then, silence. Decades later, the mystery only deepened. A Filipino treasure hunter named Rogelio Roxas claimed he found part of the hoard in the 1970s, a golden Buddha statue and crates of gold bullion, before being arrested under suspicious circumstances. Others followed, armed with old maps and ground-penetrating radar, but the jungle resisted. Tunnels collapsed, equipment failed, some searchers vanished without a trace. Why hasn't modern technology cracked this mystery? The terrain is brutal, flooded caves, unstable rock, and tangled vegetation that even satellites struggle to map. Then there are the stories of curses, of traps left by the Japanese to guard their prize. But perhaps the biggest hurdle is the sheer scale. The Philippines has over 7,000 islands, and the treasure could be anywhere, if it exists at all. Skeptics argue the gold was melted down long ago. Believers point to declassified documents hinting at secret recoveries by world powers. Either way, the hunt isn't over. Because whether it's gold or ghost stories, Yamashita's treasure has already left its mark, not just on the land, but on the imaginations of everyone who dares to dig. Among the most enduring mysteries of the ancient world sits a relic so powerful, so sought after, that its very existence blurs the line between history and legend: the Ark of the Covenant. Described in the Hebrew Bible as a gold-covered chest carrying the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments, this wasn't just a sacred container. It was a divine weapon capable of parting rivers, toppling city walls, and striking down those who dared touch it without reverence. But after the Babylonian conquest of Jerusalem in 586 B.C., the Ark vanished from recorded history. No excavation has uncovered it. No definitive document traces its path, and yet the hunt for it has never ceased. One of the most compelling theories comes from Ethiopia, where the ancient Orthodox Church in Axum claims to safeguard the Ark in a small chapel, guarded by a single monk sworn to secrecy. For centuries, the monastery's custodians have insisted their relic is the real Ark, brought to Africa by Menelik, the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. But here's the catch: no outsider has ever been allowed to examine it. The church dismisses requests with quiet resolve, leaving scholars divided. Could this be the real Ark? Or is it a later replica, a symbol of faith rather than the original? Then there's the darker twist. Some historians argue the Ark was seized by Babylonian forces and melted down for its gold. Others speculate it was hidden beneath Jerusalem's Temple Mount before the invasion, perhaps still buried there today, waiting beneath layers of sacred earth and political tension. Even modern technology can't settle the debate. Excavations in the area are nearly impossible due to the site's religious sensitivity. Of course, pop culture has its own take. Thanks to Indiana Jones, millions picture the Ark as a glowing, supernatural force stored in a nondescript government warehouse. The movie's version, a blend of biblical awe and Hollywood flair, only amplified the mystery, making people wonder, if it were found, could any nation, any museum ever truly contain it? What makes the Ark different from other lost treasures isn't just its religious significance, it's the weight of the questions it carries. If discovered, would it unite faiths or ignite conflict? Would it be revered as a relic or studied as an artifact? After 2.5 millennia of silence, one thing's certain: the Ark's power endures, not in gold or lightning, but in the unshakable grip it holds on our imagination. The greatest conqueror the world has ever known lies in an unmarked grave, hidden so well that not even the most advanced technology can expose its secrets. Genghis Khan, the founder of the Mongol Empire, united warring tribes and forged an empire stretching from the Pacific Ocean to the gates of Europe, yet his final resting place remains one of history's most tantalizing puzzles. Unlike the pharaohs of Egypt who built towering monuments to their legacy, Genghis Khan chose obscurity. According to Mongol tradition, noble burials were meant to vanish, returning the deceased to the earth without a trace. The funeral procession allegedly killed every witness along the route. Horses trampled the burial site to erase all footprints. Even the slaves who dug the grave were executed to ensure silence. And so, somewhere in the rugged Kentai Mountains of Mongolia, the tomb of history's most fearsome ruler sleeps undisturbed, guarded by 7 centuries of fear and superstition. Legends speak of a curse so potent it's kept looters at bay for generations. Locals whisper of mysterious deaths, explorers who dared to search for the tomb only to perish under strange circumstances. Even archaeologists tread lightly. In 2001, an expedition backed by cutting-edge satellite imaging scoured the landscape for anomalies, hoping to spot unnatural formations beneath the soil. They found promising lead structures that resembled ancient roads, potential ceremonial sites, but no definitive grave. The team intentionally avoided excavation, respecting local beliefs that disturbing Genghis Khan's rest would unleash catastrophe. Why is this tomb different from other royal burials? It's not just about gold or artifacts. The Mongols buried their leaders with minimal treasures, focusing instead on secrecy. If found, Genghis Khan's grave might hold something far more valuable: clues to the man behind the myth, personal effects, writings, a glimpse into the mind of a ruler who shaped continents. Some scholars speculate the site could even contain the long-lost Golden Chronicle, a comprehensive record of Mongol history said to have been buried with him. Yet modern challenges go beyond curses. The Kentai Mountains are vast, remote, and politically sensitive. Mongolia's government has declared the area off limits to invasive digs, balancing scientific curiosity with cultural preservation. Even if technology pinpoints the tomb, would anyone dare to open it? The hesitation isn't just superstition, it's the weight of history. Genghis Khan's legacy is woven into Mongolia's identity. Disturbing his grave wouldn't just risk a curse, it would risk unraveling the reverence that shielded his mystery for centuries. And so, the conqueror's silence endures, as impenetrable as the day he was laid to rest. For now, the search continues not with shovels, but with satellites, drones, and quiet negotiations between science and tradition. Because finding Genghis Khan's tomb isn't just about uncovering bones. It's about confronting the echoes of an empire that still refuses to be fully known. Some treasures aren't just lost, they're stolen, dismantled, and scattered like pieces of a glittering puzzle. Few embody this fate more tragically than the Amber Room, an 18th century marvel often called the eighth wonder of the world. Crafted entirely from amber panels backed with gold leaf and mirrors, the chamber was a gift from Prussia's Friedrich Wilhelm I to Russia's Peter the Great, a symbol of alliance wrapped in honey-colored light. For 2 centuries, it dazzled visitors in Catherine Palace near St. Petersburg, its walls glowing like captured sunlight. Then, in 1941, the Nazis came. When German forces invaded the Soviet Union, they targeted the Amber Room with surgical precision. Soldiers pried the panels from the walls, packed them into crates, and shipped them to Königsberg Castle in East Prussia, a trophy displayed briefly before the tide of war turned. By 1945, as Allied bombs rained down, the room vanished. Some say it was hidden in the castle's underground tunnels. Others whisper it was loaded onto a ship that now lies at the bottom of the Baltic. Treasure hunters have combed mine shafts, bunkers, and even a lagoon in Poland, following whispers of a truck convoy that sank in shallow waters. But despite decades of searching, not a single original panel has surfaced. The mystery deepens with each dead end. In 2018, Polish divers explored the wreck of the Karlsruhe, a German steamer that fled Königsberg in the war's final days. Inside, they found crates empty. Another theory points to a secret bunker beneath the Czech Republic's Owl Mountains, where Nazi officials allegedly stashed loot. Yet after ground-penetrating radar-flagged anomalies, excavations revealed only tunnels filled with wartime debris. Even Stalin's agents hunted for the room, convinced it was smuggled to South America among other Nazi plunder. What makes the Amber Room so haunting isn't just its absence, it's the eerie precision of its replica. In 1979, Russian craftsmen began reconstructing every detail using original techniques, from the carved floral mosaics to the faintest gold inlay. Today, the recreated chamber stands in Catherine Palace, a breathtaking tribute to what was lost. But the original, it's out there somewhere, a ghost of gilded splendor waiting to be found. And until it is, the legend lives on, not just as a theft but as a warning. The Amber Room reminds us that beauty, no matter how carefully guarded, can slip through history's fingers in an instant. Human history isn't just written in gold, it's etched into scrolls, tablets, and the fragile pages of books that hold the collective wisdom of civilizations. Few losses sting as sharply as the great libraries of antiquity, where entire worlds of knowledge vanished in moments of chaos or deliberate erasure. At the heart of this tragedy stands the legendary Library of Alexandria, a beacon of learning that once held over 500,000 scrolls, the sum of ancient Greek, Egyptian, and Near Eastern thought. Founded in the 3rd century BC by Ptolemy I, this wasn't just a storage place for texts. It was a living institution where scholars dissected the stars, mapped the human body, and calculated the circumference of the Earth with astonishing accuracy. Then disaster. The library's destruction is shrouded in blame and uncertainty. Some point to Julius Caesar's siege of Alexandria in 48 BC, when his ships set fire to the harbor, flames that may have spread to the library's warehouses. Others blame Emperor Aurelian's sack of the city in the 3rd century AD, or the decree of Coptic Christian Pope Theophilus in the 4th century, who ordered pagan temples and possibly their attached libraries razed. The truth, Alexandria likely fell victim to 1,000 cuts, neglect, shifting political winds, and slow decay. But here's the cruel twist: most of its contents weren't burned in a single cataclysmic event. They faded away as scrolls crumbled, were repurposed, or simply discarded when their ideas fell out of fashion. Now, shift the scene to Rome, where another treasure of wisdom met a far more intentional end. The Sibylline books, 9 volumes of Greek oracles purchased by Rome's last king in the 6th century BC, were kept under lock and key in the Temple of Jupiter, consulted only in times of crisis. These weren't mere prophecies, they were Rome's emergency playbook, guiding decisions on wars, plagues, and the very fate of the empire. But in 405 AD, as barbarian armies pressed closer, the general Flavius Stilicho made a fateful call. Convinced the book's pagan roots endangered Rome's Christian future, he ordered them burned. The contrast is striking. Alexandria's knowledge slipped away through centuries of accidents and indifference, while the Sibylline books were erased in an act of ideological certainty. Yet fragments survived, not intact but scattered. Quotes from the library's scholars pop up in medieval Arabic texts, preserved by Islamic scholars who translated Greek works lost to the West. Passages from the Sibylline books resurfaced in later Christian writings, repurposed to fit new beliefs. Could any of these treasures still exist in hiding? Some scholars cling to hope. Rumors persist of a secret cache beneath Alexandria's modern streets, or scrolls salvaged by monks and hidden in Egyptian monasteries. As for the Sibylline books, conspiracy theorists whisper that Stilicho's men saved a copy, a claim no historian takes seriously, but one that refuses to die. What makes these losses so haunting isn't just the knowledge they held, but the questions they leave us. Would Alexandria's scrolls have accelerated human progress by centuries? Could the Sibylline books have altered Rome's collapse? We'll never know. But their ghosts remind us that history's greatest tragedies aren't always the treasures we've lost, it's the ideas we'll never get to hear. A daring heist in the dead of night, priceless jewels vanishing without a trace, and a mystery that's outlived every suspect. Welcome to the enigma of Ireland's stolen crown jewels. On the morning of July 6, 1907, guards at Dublin Castle made a chilling discovery: the safe in the Office of Arms, where the insignia of the Order of St. Patrick were kept, stood empty. Gone were the diamond-studded badges, the ceremonial collars, and most devastating of all, the Grand Master's star, a piece so brilliant it was said to outshine the stars in the sky. These weren't just royal regalia. They were the very symbols of British authority over Ireland, making their theft as politically explosive as it was audacious. The investigation that followed reads like a detective novel with no final chapter. Suspicion fell immediately on Francis Shackleton, brother to the famous polar explorer Ernest Shackleton and the man responsible for the jewel's security. His alibi was shaky, his finances dubious, and rumors swirled about his ties to underground networks. Yet despite weeks of intense scrutiny, no charges were ever filed. The jewels never surfaced, not in pawn shops, not on the black market, not even whispered about in backroom deals. It was as if they dissolved into the Dublin fog. What makes this theft so tantalizing isn't just the treasure itself, worth millions today, but the layers of intrigue surrounding it. Some historians argue the jewels were stolen not for wealth, but as an act of rebellion. Ireland's push for independence was gaining momentum, and the jewels represented everything nationalists sought to dismantle. Others believed the heist was an inside job meant to embarrass the British administration, with Shackleton as the fall guy. There's even a theory that the jewels were smuggled abroad and melted down, their gems recut to erase their identity. More than a century later, the mystery endures. Ireland's National Museum has kept the reward offer open, a silent acknowledgement that someone, somewhere, might still know where the jewels lie. Modern forensic techniques could theoretically help if there were anything left to examine. But with Shackleton long dead and every lead gone cold, the truth may stay buried in history's shadows. The crown jewels of Ireland aren't just a lost treasure. They're a question mark, a story without an ending. Were they destroyed, hidden, or are they still out there, waiting for the right moment to resurface? Until then, the theft remains a masterclass in audacity and a reminder that some secrets refuse to be solved. In the early 19th century, as revolution swept through South America, a fortune in gold and jewels vanished without a trace, hidden not by its owners, but by the very people sworn to protect it. This is the story of the treasure of Lima, a trove so vast it could have bankrolled an empire. When Simon Bolivar's forces advanced on Lima in 1820, the city's terrified clergy faced an impossible choice. Their churches held centuries of accumulated wealth, gem-encrusted statues, solid gold altar pieces, and chests overflowing with silver mined from the Andes. Rather than let revolutionaries seize it, they entrusted it all to a British sea captain named William Thompson, who promised to transport the treasure to Mexico for safekeeping. But Thompson had other plans. Within days of leaving port, his crew mutinied, slaughtering the guards and priests aboard. What happened next depends on who you believe. Some accounts claim Thompson and his first mate, Benito, sailed straight to Cocos Island, a speck of land 300 miles off Costa Rica's coast, where they buried the treasure in a hidden cave. Others insist they split the loot among the crew, scattering it across ports from Panama to Australia. Either way, the treasure never reached Mexico and Thompson disappeared into legend. For over 2 centuries, Cocos Island has been ground zero for treasure hunters. The island's dense jungle and sheer cliffs make exploration a nightmare, but that hasn't stopped thousands from trying. In 1855, a sailor named John Keating claimed to have found part of the hoard, describing a cavern lined with gold bars and a life-sized statue of the Virgin Mary studded with emeralds. He allegedly filled his pockets with gems before a sudden rockslide forced him to flee, and when he returned, he could never find the spot again. Modern expeditions haven't fared much better. In 1978, a team using sonar and deep-sea divers found what they believed was a man-made tunnel underwater, but legal disputes with the Costa Rican government halted the dig. That's the other twist. Cocos Island is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, fiercely protected by environmental laws. Salvage rights have sparked courtroom battles from San Jose to London, with governments, investors, and even descendants of Thompson's crew all staking claims. What's left of the treasure of Lima may be nothing, maybe everything. The truth is buried somewhere between pirate tallies and court filings, between jungle vines and ocean depths. But the real treasure might be the story itself, a tale of betrayal, greed, and the enduring lure of gold that still draws adventurers to this day. After all, when a fortune vanishes twice, first from a church, then from history, who's to say it won't surface a third time? The golden menorah from Jerusalem's Second Temple wasn't just a religious artifact, it was a battle trophy, a political pawn, and now one of history's most contested missing treasures. After Roman legions sacked Jerusalem in 70 AD, they paraded the menorah through Rome's streets, immortalized in carvings on the Arch of Titus. For centuries, it sat in the imperial treasury, a glittering symbol of conquest. But then, like so many treasures, it vanished. The debate over its fate hinges on 2 thin threads of history, one pointing to destruction, the other to secrecy. First, the Trail of Fire. When Rome fell into chaos during the 5th century, the Vandals ransacked the city, hauling the menorah to Carthage. By the 6th century, Byzantine Emperor Justinian reclaimed it, sending it to Constantinople's Great Palace. Here, the historical record gets murky. Some scholars argue it was melted down during the Fourth Crusade in 1204, when Crusaders turned on Constantinople, looting its riches and reducing centuries of art to bullion. Melted gold would have been far easier to transport than an ornate, fragile relic, but others counter with a tantalizing clue. Meticulous Byzantine inventories list the menorah in the palace vaults just decades before the Crusade. Could it have been smuggled out before the sack? That's where the Vatican theory ignites. Medieval whispers speak of a secret pact Byzantine officials sneaking the menorah to Rome for safekeeping as Crusaders closed in. Centuries later, in 1947, a British archaeologist claimed to have seen a handwritten note in the Vatican archives referencing the Hebrew lamp stored beneath the city. Of course, the Vatican has consistently denied this, but secrecy is woven into its history. Its underground storerooms hold everything from pagan idols to Renaissance masterpieces, many uncatalogued. Could the menorah be among them, hidden not out of malice but to protect it from further desecration? The menorah's mystery isn't just about gold, it's about identity. For Jews, its loss symbolizes exile and resilience. For Romans, it was proof of imperial might. Even if found, its return would spark diplomatic storms. Does it belong to Israel? The Vatican, should it stay buried as a silent witness to history's turbulence? The answers might lie in a forgotten vault, a melted ingot, or a dusty archive. Until then, its light shines brightest in the shadows of speculation. Beneath the waves off the coast of Alexandria, where the Mediterranean swallows the remains of an ancient kingdom, lies a secret that could rewrite the final chapter of one of history's most famous love stories. Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of Egypt, was said to have chosen death over dishonor after her lover Mark Antony fell on his sword. According to ancient chroniclers like Plutarch, the couple was buried together in a lavish tomb, a request she made to Octavian himself, ensuring their legends would remain entwined for eternity. But while their lives were meticulously documented, their gravesite vanished without a trace. Until now, recent expeditions near Taposiris Magna, a temple complex 28 miles west of Alexandria, have uncovered tantalizing clues. Underwater archaeologists mapping the sunken ruins of Cleopatra's palace district stumbled upon a series of anomalies, submerged chambers and tunnels hidden beneath centuries of silt. Ground-penetrating radar revealed structures eerily similar to descriptions of Ptolemaic-era royal tombs, complete with potential burial shafts. But the real breakthrough came in 2022 when a team led by Dr. Kathleen Martinez uncovered a sealed tunnel stretching toward the sea, its walls etched with cartouches bearing Cleopatra's name. Why would finding this tomb shatter history books? Unlike the tomb of Tutankhamun, which contained treasures but little context, Cleopatra's burial would offer a first-hand account of a ruler who shaped the ancient world. Imagine personal artifacts: her famed pearl earrings dissolved in vinegar, the serpent bracelet she allegedly used to end her life, or even the lost manuscripts of her palace library. More crucially, the discovery of Mark Antony beside her would confirm centuries of speculation about their relationship. Were they truly buried as equals, defying Roman tradition? Did their tomb contain symbols blending Egyptian and Roman art, proof of a cultural fusion that outlasted them? The challenge lies in Alexandria's turbulent geology. Earthquakes and rising sea levels have drowned much of the city's ancient quarters, leaving artifacts scattered across the seabed. Excavation is a race against time and politics. Egypt's Ministry of Tourism has cautiously endorsed the Taposiris Magna digs, but skepticism lingers. Some scholars argue Cleopatra would never have been interred so far from Alexandria's royal necropolis. Others believe her tomb was deliberately hidden to prevent Roman desecration, much like Genghis Khan's burial. Yet the allure persists. If found, Cleopatra's tomb wouldn't just be a treasure trove of gold. It would be a time capsule of a woman who outmaneuvered empires only to have her story written by her enemies. Every shard of pottery, every scrap of papyrus could reclaim her narrative from the myth. And that's the real treasure, not what was lost, but the truth waiting to rise from the depths. The deserts of the Negev hold whispers of an empire's wealth mine so vast they fueled the legend of King Solomon's unmatched riches. Biblical texts describe a king who received 25 tons of gold annually, a staggering sum that archaeologists once dismissed as myth. But recent discoveries suggest the truth might lie buried beneath Jordan's dusty plains. The fabled mines of Solomon, long thought to be allegorical, are now the focus of cutting-edge drone surveys uncovering ancient smelting sites and copper shafts dating back to the 10th century BC. These aren't just random holes in the ground, they're industrial complexes with intricate air shafts and drainage systems, proof of a mining operation far beyond what scholars believed possible for the era. What ties these mines to Solomon? Phoenician trade records speak of a partnership between the Israelite king and the seafaring merchants of Tyre, who supplied craftsmen and engineers in exchange for access to his mineral wealth. One clay tablet, unearthed near modern-day Aqaba, mentions the Great Pits of Edom, a region straddling Jordan and southern Israel. Chemical analysis of slag heaps piles of mining waste reveals copper laced with traces of gold, matching descriptions of Solomon's temple ornaments. Yet the real breakthrough came when researchers noticed something eerie about the mine's layouts. They align precisely with celestial events, suggesting they weren't just functional but sacred, designed to mirror heavenly patterns. Half a world away, another biblical mystery lingers: the lost land of Ophir, a place so rich in gold that Solomon's ships took 3 years to complete their round-trip voyages. While some theorists place Ophir in India or Arabia, mounting evidence points to Zimbabwe's Great Plateau. Ruins like Great Zimbabwe, a medieval city of stone towers and terraces, bear uncanny similarities to Phoenician architecture. Even more compelling, gold artifacts found here contain impurities unique to the region, matching descriptions of Ophir's gold of Parvame. Portuguese explorers in the 16th century claimed local rulers spoke of ancestors who traded with red-bearded men from across the sea, likely Phoenician sailors who braved the Indian Ocean's monsoons. Modern technology is rewriting these ancient maps. In the Negev, drones equipped with multispectral cameras have identified buried smelting furnaces invisible to the naked eye, while Zimbabwean archaeologists use ground-penetrating radar to locate collapsed mine shafts beneath baobab trees. But the hunt isn't just about gold, it's about rewriting history. If Solomon's mines were real, they'd prove the Bible's accounts of his wealth weren't hyperbolic, but grounded in a trade network spanning continents. And if Ophir's gold flowed from Africa, it would mean Phoenician sailors achieved feats of navigation centuries before Europe's age of exploration. The sands and soils still guard their secrets, but each shard of pottery, each slag heap analyzed, brings us closer to a truth as elusive as the treasures themselves. Because sometimes the real prize isn't the gold, it's the story waiting to be unearthed beneath it. For over a millennium, one object symbolized the divine right to rule China more powerfully than any crown or scepter: the imperial seal. A square jade block carved with 8 legendary characters declaring the emperor's mandate from heaven. Crafted in 221 BC for Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor to unite China's warring states, this wasn't just a stamp, it was the physical embodiment of authority itself. Historical records describe it as luminous white jade, tinged with veins of gold, its base inscribed with the phrase, "Received from heaven, eternal prosperity." To possess it was to legitimize a dynasty, to lose it was an omen of collapse. But in the chaos of the 10th century 5 dynasties period, as warlords tore the empire apart, the seal vanished, leaving behind a mystery that's haunted collectors and historians ever since. The seal's journey reads like a chronicle of China's tumultuous history. It survived palace coups, barbarian invasions, and even a notorious incident where Empress Dowager Wang, facing rebellion in 9 AD, allegedly hurled it at a floor in rage, chipping one corner. Yet each time it was lost, whether stolen by nomadic Xiongnu raiders or misplaced during the Three Kingdoms era, miraculous rediscoveries followed, until the Tang dynasty fell. That's when the trail goes cold. Some scholars blame Zhu Wen, a rebel general who overthrew the Tang in 907, suggesting he melted it down to erase its symbolic power. Others claim it was smuggled to the Khitan Empire, hidden among tribute gifts to avoid destruction. Here's where the modern intrigue begins. Over 30 alleged authentic seals have surfaced since the Ming dynasty, each claiming to be the original. The most famous appeared in 1746, when a farmer near Xi'an unearthed a jade seal matching historical descriptions right down to the repaired corner. Emperor Qianlong, obsessed with verifying relics, ordered exhaustive tests. Court scholars pored over ancient texts comparing weight, luster, and the calligraphy's brushstrokes. The verdict, a convincing fake, yet the debate never died. In 2012, a Hong Kong auction offered a jade seal purportedly from the Tang era, sparking a frenzy. Infrared scans revealed traces of vermilion ink consistent with imperial use, but skeptics noted its gold veins were too uniform, a giveaway of modern tools. What makes the imperial seal so irresistible isn't just its cultural weight. It's the psychological power of an object that transcends its material form. Modern Chinese leaders have quietly encouraged searches, aware that its discovery could electrify national pride. Meanwhile, collectors obsess over minutiae, the angle of the chip, the depth of the engraving, as if solving a puzzle that bridges 1,000 years. The irony, even if the original resurfaced, would anyone recognize it? After centuries of flawless forgeries, the line between artifact and legend has blurred beyond repair. And perhaps that's fitting. The seal's true legacy was never about jade. It was about the unshakable idea that power, like history, is always just one imprint away from being rewritten. Deep in Arizona's Superstition Mountains, where jagged cliffs cast long shadows and the desert heat shimmers like a mirage, lies a secret that's lured hundreds to their doom, the Lost Dutchman's gold mine. The legend is simple, a fortune in gold hidden by an elusive prospector named Jacob Waltz, who whispered cryptic clues on his deathbed in 1891. But the reality is anything but simple. This isn't just a treasure hunt, it's a tale woven with Apache curses, brutal massacres, and a landscape so treacherous it's earned its name. The story begins not with Waltz, but decades earlier with the Peralta family of Mexico. In the 1840s, they mined vast amounts of gold from these mountains, smuggling it south under cover of darkness. Then, in 1848, disaster struck. Apache warriors, enraged by the desecration of their sacred land, ambushed the Peralta party, slaughtering all but a handful. The survivors fled, leaving behind maps etched on rawhide, maps that would later surface in Waltz's possession. Fast forward to the 1880s when Waltz, a German immigrant, suddenly appeared in Phoenix with sacks of gold, ore so pure it defied belief. He claimed to have found the Peralta cache but refused to reveal its location. On his deathbed, he muttered directions: "Go to the shadow of the weaver's needle at sunset." Geologists have a more grounded explanation. The superstitions are laced with quartz veins, a telltale sign of gold deposits. Spanish records even mention golden needles protruding from the rock, likely quartz formations glittering in the sun. Modern surveys confirm the area's mineral wealth, but there's a catch. The mountains are a labyrinth of box canyons and false trails, where GPS signals falter and flash floods erase landmarks overnight. Then there are the warnings, not just from the Apache, who still consider the range sacred, but from the mountain itself. Over 100 adventurers have vanished here since the 1890s. Some were found as sun-bleached bones, their canteens still full. Others simply disappeared, like the experienced prospector who radioed his base camp in 1947, screaming about a cave of light before static swallowed his voice forever. Could the mine still be out there? Every year, new seekers arrive armed with drones and ground-penetrating radar, convinced they've cracked Waltz's code. Some follow the heart map, a rock formation resembling an anatomical heart, said to point the way. Others track magnetic anomalies, hoping to find the Peralta's hidden smelting pits. But the mountains guard their secrets well. The real treasure might not be gold, but the chilling reminder that some legends are best left buried. When King Philip IV of France ordered the arrest of every Knight Templar on Friday, October 13, 1307, he didn't just target an order of warrior monks, he ignited a mystery that would burn for centuries. The Templars, Europe's most powerful military force, were accused of heresy, blasphemy, and secret rituals. But beneath the smoke of these charges, whispers swirled about something far more dangerous: treasure. Not just gold or jewels, but relics of unimaginable significance, objects like the Turin Shroud, said to bear the face of Christ himself, or perhaps even fragments of the true cross. The Knights' sudden downfall, their cryptic symbols, and the eerie silence of their vaults have fed endless theories. Did they hide their hoard before the arrests? And if so, where? One name echoes louder than most: Rennes-le-Château, a sleepy village in southern France where, in 1885, a penniless priest named Bérenger Saunière began renovating his crumbling church and allegedly uncovered something extraordinary. Stories claim he found parchments hidden in a hollow altar pillar, documents so explosive they earned him sudden wealth. He built a tower, commissioned cryptic paintings, and landscaped his gardens with bizarre astronomical alignments. Conspiracy theorists insist the Templars had stashed treasure here centuries earlier, possibly even proof of a bloodline linking Christ to European royalty. Skeptics dismiss it as a hoax, pointing to Saunière's shady dealings with fake relics. Yet the enigma lingers. Why would a rural priest embed codes in his church floor, carving the phrase, "This place is terrible," above the entrance? Then there's Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland, a 15th century masterpiece so dense with symbolism it's been called a book in stone. Its pillars twist with vines, its arches bloom with carvings of corn, a plant unknown in Europe when the chapel was built. But the most tantalizing details are the Templar connections. Among the foliage, hidden faces peer out, some resembling Templar knights. Underground, sealed chambers rumble with sonar echoes, hinting at voids beneath the floor. Local legend claims the chapel was a waypoint for Templars fleeing persecution, a final resting place for relics smuggled out of France. What binds these sites together isn't just the allure of treasure, it's the fear of what the Templars might have known. Were they guardians of a secret so explosive it had to be erased from history? Or did their real power lie in the illusion of one, a myth so potent it outlived their order? The shadows hold their answer, but in the quiet of Rennes-le-Château's church or the carved whispers of Rosslyn, the past still hums with possibilities. When Ferdinand Magellan's ships anchored off the coast of Patagonia in 1520, his crew expected uncharted land, not giants. Yet according to the expedition's logs, the natives who waded into the surf to greet them stood nearly 12 feet tall, their legs so massive that the Europeans' heads barely reached their waists. Chronicler Antonio Pigafetta described how these towering figures wore crude sandals lined with silver, claiming the metal came from mountains inland where the earth bleeds white. For centuries, historians dismissed these accounts as exaggerations, until a series of eerie discoveries in the caves of southern Chile began to rewrite the story. In 1999, a team of speleologists mapping the Mylodon Cave, a vast limestone cavern near Puerto Natales, stumbled upon something extraordinary. Beneath layers of guano and ancient sediment lay fragments of a skeleton unlike anything in the fossil record. The femur alone measured over 5 feet long, suggesting an individual standing close to 11 feet tall. Carbon dating placed the remains at around 10,000 years old, long before Magellan's arrival, but the real shock came when researchers examined the surrounding soil. Traces of silver smelting were everywhere, along with charcoal pits and crude stone tools. Whoever these people were, they weren't just hunters, they were miners. Local legends have long spoken of the Koskar, ancient ancestors who dug the moon metal from the bones of the earth. Modern geologists confirm the region is laced with silver deposits, particularly around the Cerro Torre Massif, where Spanish colonial records mention abandoned mine shafts too large to be the work of ordinary humans. Some anthropologists argue the giants were simply the Selknam or Tehult tribes, whose average height around 6 feet would have seemed colossal to malnourished 16th century sailors. But the Mylodon findings complicate that theory. The cave's skeletal fragments show distinct anatomical differences from indigenous populations, including thicker cranial ridges and unusually robust spinal columns. So where did they go? One clue might lie in the cave's walls, where handprints twice the size of a modern man's frame red ochre paintings of strange, elongated figures carrying what appear to be ingots. Spanish missionary accounts from the 1700s mention a plague of fire that devastated Patagonia's coastal tribes, possibly a reference to volcanic activity or epidemics introduced by European contact. Could the giants have been the last of a Pleistocene-era people, their minds swallowed by glaciers or buried under centuries of ash? The treasure here isn't just silver, it's the possibility of an entire chapter of human history we've overlooked. Every oversized tool, every smelted fragment, whispers of a culture that mastered metallurgy while mammoths still roamed. And if Magellan's logs were right about the giants, what else might they have seen in that untamed land? The answer could still be out there, hidden in the wind-scoured caves of Patagonia, waiting for someone to look up and up and up to find it. Hidden among the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1952, archaeologists uncovered something utterly unlike the others, a brittle sheet of copper, etched with cryptic Hebrew letters and a list so precise it read like a treasure hunter's fever dream. Unlike the religious texts found nearby, the copper scroll doesn't speak of prophecies or psalms. It details 64 hiding places, each crammed with staggering amounts of gold, silver, and sacred temple objects. But here's the twist: the directions are maddeningly specific yet impossible to follow. One entry describes the ruin that is in the valley of Achor, under the steps leading to the east, where 40 talents of silver lie buried. Another points to a cistern in the salt pit that is under the stairs. These aren't vague legends, they're GPS coordinates without a map, written in a dialect so archaic even modern scholars argue over translations. The mystery deepens when you consider where the scroll was found, tucked inside Cave 3 at Qumran, a site better known for its pottery shards and crumbling inkwells than treasure maps. While most Dead Sea Scrolls were penned on fragile parchment, this one was deliberately crafted to last, hammered into metal as if meant to endure centuries. Why? One theory suggests it was a backup record, created by Jewish rebels during the Roman siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD to safeguard the temple's wealth. Others believe it's a clever diversion, an ancient red herring designed to send looters on wild goose chases while the real treasures were smuggled elsewhere. Meanwhile, just a few hills over, the so-called Cave 8 at Qumran tells a very different story. Excavated in the 1950s, this cavern yielded none of the gleaming artifacts promised by the copper scroll, just broken jars, cracked lamps, and a single rusted Roman coin. At first glance, it seems like a dead end, but archaeologists noticed something odd. The pottery fragments fit together too perfectly, as if someone had methodically smashed entire vessels against the cave walls. Add to that the charred patches on the floor and the absence of human remains, and a new picture emerges. This wasn't a treasury, it was a decoy. The contrast between these two caches reveals a brilliant strategy. The copper scroll, with its tantalizing clues, pulls focus toward hidden riches, but Cave 8 shows the lengths people went to protect what mattered. Some scholars now believe the Essenes, the ascetic community linked to Qumran, deliberately shattered their own storage jars to mislead Roman soldiers, buying time to spirit away their most sacred texts. The real treasure wasn't gold, it was knowledge. So where does that leave the copper scroll's promises? Over the decades, a handful of expeditions have tried to follow its directions, digging near Jericho's ancient aqueducts or scanning the cliffs above Ein Gedi. Most came up empty. A few claimed to find empty stone chambers, their contents looted millennia ago. But the scroll's final entry still haunts researchers. In the pit adjoining to the north, in a hole opening northward, lies a copy of this document with explanations. In other words, the key to decoding the scroll might be buried alongside it, waiting for someone to connect the dots. Until then, the copper scroll remains history's most literal cold case, a metal enigma that refuses to tarnish, no matter how many hands touch it. The legend of El Dorado didn't begin as a city of gold. It started with a man, a very specific man, covered head to toe in gold dust, standing on a raft in the middle of a sacred lake. This was the ritual of the Muisca people, an advanced civilization nestled in Colombia's Andean highlands long before the Spanish arrived. Every time a new ruler ascended to power, priests would coat his body in resin before blowing powdered gold across his skin until he gleamed like the sun itself. Then, as drums echoed across the water, this living, breathing golden man, the El Dorado, would sail to the center of Lake Guatavita, casting emeralds and gold offerings into the depths as sacrifices to the gods. For the Muisca, this wasn't treasure, it was a covenant with the divine. But when Spanish conquistadors heard whispers of this ritual in the 1530s, their imaginations exploded. To men consumed by gold fever, the ceremony wasn't a spiritual act, it was proof of an empire dripping with wealth. The name El Dorado twisted from describing a person to a place, a mythical city where gold was so abundant it paved the streets. Expeditions tore through jungles and mountains, leaving trails of blood and broken promises. Gonzalo Jimenez de Quesada, the first European to reach Muisca lands, emptied tombs and melted sacred artifacts into ingots. Yet the grand prize, the lake itself, remained just out of reach. Centuries later, modern technology is finally revealing what the conquistadors missed. LiDAR scans over Lake Guatavita have mapped its submerged slopes, uncovering terraces and steps carved into the crater's walls, clear evidence of human engineering. These scans suggest the Muisca didn't just throw treasures haphazardly into the water. They staged ceremonies along precise pathways, turning the lake into a liquid altar. Even more intriguing are the sonar anomalies, dense objects clustered at specific depths, matching descriptions of the gold and emerald offerings recorded in colonial chronicles. The real revelation, though, lies beyond the lake. LiDAR has exposed an entire ceremonial landscape hidden under Colombia's dense vegetation, a network of roads, plazas, and shrines radiating from Guatavita like spokes on a wheel. This was no isolated ritual. It was the heart of a sophisticated belief system, one that saw gold not as currency but as a bridge between earth and sky. So why hasn't the lake been drained? Early attempts were disastrous. In the 1960s, a British venture siphoned the water only to find the deeper layers of silt had solidified like concrete, trapping treasures beyond reach. Today, Colombia protects Guatavita as a cultural heritage site, banning further salvage. But perhaps the greatest irony is this: the Muisca's gold was never meant to be hoarded. It was meant to vanish, given freely to the water, just as their golden king had done. In the end, El Dorado was never a place. It was a moment, a flash of sunlight on skin, a ripple closing over gold. And that's why, despite every map and scan, some treasures stay forever out of reach, not lost to history but surrendered to it. When Raiders of the Lost Ark depicted Tanis as a lost city swallowed by the desert, it was only half right. The real Tanis, ancient Egypt's glittering capital during the 21st dynasty, wasn't buried by sand, it was drowned. Unlike the pyramids built on arid plateaus, Tanis rose from the Nile Delta's marshy floodplains, where seasonal waters slowly swallowed its palaces and temples beneath layers of silt. This is why, despite French archaeologist Pierre Montet's stunning discoveries in 1939, the city still guards secrets that could rewrite history. Montet's excavation unearthed royal tombs untouched by looters, their chambers overflowing with golden death masks, lapis lazuli jewelry, and the silver sarcophagus of Pharaoh Susens I, one of the few surviving silver coffins from ancient Egypt. But here's what Hollywood left out. Montet only scratched the surface. Modern ground-penetrating radar reveals anomalies suggesting entire tomb complexes still lie buried, blocked by underground water tables that have foiled excavations for decades. The delta's high water level acts like a natural vault, preserving organic materials, wood, papyrus, even fabric, that would have crumbled to dust in drier climates. Why does this matter? Tanis wasn't just another necropolis. It was Egypt's political heart during a period of fractured power, where pharaohs like Susens ruled alongside high priests in a fragile balance. The city's ruins hold clues to how Egypt survived the Bronze Age collapse when neighboring empires crumbled. Some archaeologists believe undiscovered tombs could contain diplomatic letters or treaties written on fragile papyrus, revealing how these rulers navigated chaos. Others speculate about missing royal regalia, the crowns or scepters of the Tanite kings, possibly hidden during invasions. The challenge isn't just water. The delta's shifting geology means ancient structures have sunk or tilted over time, turning tunnels into treacherous labyrinths. In 2018, a team using muon tomography, a particle imaging technique, detected a void beneath Montet's original dig site, possibly a corridor leading to an unexplored burial chamber. But reaching it would require pumping out groundwater without destabilizing the ruins, a risk no archaeologist is willing to take. So while Indiana Jones made Tanis synonymous with Hollywood adventure, the real treasure lies in patience. Every year, new technologies inch us closer to those flooded chambers, and when we finally reach them, the rewards won't be golden idols, but answers. How did a city built on swampy ground become a pharaonic powerhouse? What deals were struck in its shadowed halls? The Nile's mud has kept those secrets safe for 3,000 years. But not forever. Mel Fisher spent 16 years chasing a dream across the Florida Straits, a dream named Nuestra Señora de Atocha, a Spanish galleon swallowed by a hurricane in 1622. When his team finally struck gold in 1985, the world watched as they hauled up silver bars, gold coins, and emerald-studded crosses, a haul worth nearly $500 million. But here's what headlines missed. They'd only found half the ship. The Atocha's stern, where the richest passengers and cargo were stored, remains lost. And with it, an estimated $500 million in muso, emeralds some the size of chicken eggs, still lie scattered somewhere on the ocean floor. Why hasn't modern technology cracked this puzzle? The challenges are staggering. The stern likely separated during the storm, carried miles away by currents before sinking into the treacherous quicksands off the Florida Keys, an area where shifting sands bury and expose wreckage unpredictably. Even with magnetometers and side-scan sonar, distinguishing the Atocha's remnants from other wrecks or natural debris is like finding a needle in a sand dune that never stops moving. Current salvage teams like Fisher's descendants at Mel Fisher's Treasures now use deep-sea robots equipped with suction dredges to sift through layers of sediment. But the ocean fights back. One storm can erase years of progress, burying clues under fresh drifts of sand. Then there's the legal labyrinth. The Atocha's known artifacts are split between Fisher's company and the state of Florida, with strict permits governing new excavations. Archaeologists argue over how much tech should be used, fearing robotic arms might damage fragile wood or scatter artifacts beyond reconstruction. Meanwhile, fishermen and amateur divers still occasionally surface with emerald fragments, proof the stern's treasures are out there, whispering to those willing to listen. The real twist: the missing emeralds might not even be the most valuable part of the wreck. Historical manifests mention sealed chests of royal fifth gems, taxes bound for the Spanish crown, handpicked for their flawless clarity. If found, they wouldn't just be a payday, they'd be time capsules from the mines of Colombia, each stone carrying the fingerprints of indigenous miners forced to extract them. That's the paradox of the Atocha. Its greatest treasure isn't just wealth, but the stories trapped beneath the waves, waiting for the right combination of tech, timing, and tide to finally come ashore. For over 2 centuries, a small island off the coast of Nova Scotia has been the stage for one of history's most obsessive treasure hunts, the Oak Island Money Pit. What started as a curious depression in the ground discovered by teenagers in 1795 spiraled into an all-consuming quest involving presidents, engineers, and countless fortune seekers. The story goes like this: as the boys dug deeper, they hit layers of oak logs every 10 feet, arranged with such precision that the sight couldn't be natural. Then came the flood tunnels. Excavators would breach a new layer only to watch in horror as seawater rushed in, filling the shaft overnight. This wasn't just a hole in the ground, it was a fortress of engineering, seemingly designed to protect something extraordinary. Theories about what lies buried here range from the plausible to the fantastical. Some argue it's pirate loot, perhaps Captain Kidd's legendary hoard or Blackbeard's plunder. Others whisper of Templar treasures, citing a mysterious stone found at 90 feet deep, carved with cryptic symbols later interpreted as a cipher reading, 40 feet below, £2 million lie buried. But the most compelling evidence emerged in 2014, when advanced drilling tests detected traces of silver and gold deep underground. The samples weren't just flecks. They matched the composition of Spanish colonial coins, reigniting hopes that the money pit holds more than just mud and mystery. Yet the island guards its secrets with a vengeance. 6 lives have been lost to collapsing shafts and flooding tunnels. Millions of dollars have vanished into failed excavations. Modern efforts, equipped with sonar and satellite imaging, have mapped a labyrinth of underground chambers and water channels. Proof that whoever built this puzzle understood engineering far beyond their time. The latest expeditions, backed by the Lagina brothers on the History Channel's The Curse of Oak Island, have uncovered artifacts like a 700-year-old lead cross and human bone fragments dating to the 1400s. What makes Oak Island different from other treasure hunts isn't just the prize, it's the persistence. Generations of explorers have been lured by the same question: what could possibly be valuable enough to justify such an elaborate, lethal vault? The answer might lie in the island's geology itself. Some researchers now believe the treasure isn't gold but knowledge, perhaps lost manuscripts, religious relics, or even proof of pre-Columbian transatlantic voyages. After all, the only thing more powerful than wealth is a truth that rewrites history, and that might be the one thing Oak Island isn't ready to surrender. Among the countless treasures lost to the chaos of war, few carry the weight of history like the Honjo Masamune, a sword so revered it was considered a national treasure of Japan, crafted by the legendary bladesmith Goro Nudo Masamune in the 13th century. Unlike ordinary weapons, Masamune's creations were works of spiritual and metallurgical perfection, forged with techniques so advanced they bordered on alchemy. The Honjo blade earned its name after General Honjo Shigenaga survived a blow that split his helmet clean in half during battle, leaving him in awe of the sword's unbreakable edge. For 7 centuries, it passed through the hands of shoguns and warlords, surviving fires, rebellions, and even the Meiji Restoration, only to vanish without a trace in the aftermath of World War II. The last confirmed sighting was in December 1945, when Japan's defeated government, under Allied orders, compiled an inventory of swords owned by noble families. The Honjo Masamune was duly registered, its curved blade and exquisite tempering pattern documented one final time. Then, in early 1946, the U.S. occupation forces began confiscating weapons en masse, a measure meant to demilitarize Japan, but one that inadvertently swept up priceless cultural artifacts. Thousands of swords were crated and shipped abroad, sold as souvenirs or worse, melted down for scrap metal during post-war industrial drives. Despite decades of searches through military archives and private collections, no trace of the Honjo Masamune has ever surfaced. Could it still exist? The tantalizing possibility lies in an unexpected twist. Not all confiscated swords were destroyed. Many ended up in the hands of American servicemen who, unaware of their historical value, kept them as war trophies. In recent years, a handful of Masamune's lesser-known works have been rediscovered this way. One turned up in a Texas attic in 2016, another in a veteran's estate sale in Massachusetts. But the Honjo blade's fame makes it both harder and easier to find. Harder because its distinctive Hammond tempering pattern and golden habaki collar would make it instantly recognizable to collectors. Easier because its legacy means someone, somewhere, might recognize it gathering dust in a forgotten corner. The tragedy of the Honjo Masamune isn't just the loss of a sword, it's the erasure of a living thread to Japan's feudal past. For samurai, these blades were souls given physical form, passed down generations as embodiments of honor. Today, replicas exist in museums and craftsmen still study Masamune's techniques, but the original remains a ghost. Maybe it's sitting in a warehouse, mislabeled among surplus army gear. Maybe it was smuggled out privately, waiting for the right heir to reveal it. Or maybe, like so many treasures, it was reduced to molten metal, reforged into something unrecognizable, a silent casualty of history's relentless march. Until evidence says otherwise, the hunt continues, fueled by equal parts hope and heartbreak. After all, legends this enduring don't fade quietly into the dark. They wait. Among the most exquisite treasures lost in the chaos of the Russian Revolution were the legendary Fabergé eggs, 50 imperial masterpieces crafted for Russia's last Tsars. These weren't just jeweled ornaments. Each egg, designed by the genius Peter Carl Fabergé, hid intricate surprises inside: a miniature gold crown, a clockwork elephant, even a replica of the royal carriage in perfect tiny detail. But when the Romanov dynasty fell in 1917, 7 of these priceless creations vanished, scattered by war, revolution, and the black market. To this day, 8 imperial eggs remain unaccounted for. Their fate's a tantalizing mystery for collectors and historians alike. The missing eggs read like a catalogue of lost opulence. There's the Necessaire egg, a ruby-studded piece containing 13 diamond-encrusted grooming tools. The Royal Danish egg, a tribute to Tsar Alexander III's Danish heritage, its exterior a lattice of golden ribbons. Perhaps most haunting is the Empire Nephrite egg, carved from deep green stone and last seen in a London auction in 1952 before disappearing into the shadows of private collections. For decades, experts assumed these masterpieces had been melted down for their gems and gold until a stunning discovery turned everything upside down. In 2014, a scrap metal dealer browsing a Midwest flea market stumbled upon a golden egg tucked between old silverware and costume jewelry. After buying it for $14,000, he spent months researching its origins only to uncover the unthinkable. This was the 3rd imperial egg, one of the missing Fabergé creations, long believed destroyed. Forensic tests confirmed its gold shell, diamond accents, and the tiny Vacheron Constantin watch hidden inside matched Fabergé's original designs exactly. How did a treasure worth $33 million end up in a pile of knickknacks? The trail led back to the 1920s when Soviet officials sold confiscated Romanov treasures to fund the new regime. Dealers bought them cheap, often unaware of their true significance, scattering them across Europe and America. This discovery reignited hope that the other 7 lost eggs might still exist, tucked away in attics, mislabeled in antique shops, or gathering dust in forgotten vaults. Fabergé scholars now scrutinize pre-revolutionary photographs and shipping manifests, chasing whispers of eggs smuggled out by fleeing aristocrats or hidden in Swiss bank deposits. The challenge: many lack their original gemstones, stripped by desperate owners during exile, making identification a forensic puzzle. What makes these eggs more than just glittering artifacts is their intimate connection to a shattered world. Each one was a love letter from Tsar to Tsarina, a snapshot of imperial life frozen in enamel and pearl. Finding them wouldn't just reclaim lost wealth, it would piece together fragments of a story that ended in tragedy. And if one could surface in a flea market after a century, who's to say the others won't follow? After all, history's greatest treasures aren't always buried. Sometimes they're hiding in plain sight. The pyramids of Giza might dominate Egypt's postcards, but two lesser-known wonders, one lost beneath the waves, the other swallowed by the desert, hold secrets just as tantalizing. Let's start with the sarcophagus of Pharaoh Menkauhor, the smallest of Giza's three great pyramids. When British explorer Richard Vyse blasted his way into Menkauhor's burial chamber in 1837, he found a sight that defied expectation. A stunning sarcophagus carved from a single block of basalt, its surface etched with intricate patterns resembling a palace facade. This wasn't just a coffin, it was a masterpiece of Old Kingdom artistry, a relic untouched for over 4,000 years. Vyse, eager to claim it for the British Museum, loaded it onto the merchant ship Beatrice. But the sea had other plans. Somewhere between Alexandria and Malta, the Beatrice vanished in a storm, taking Menkauhor's sarcophagus to the depths. Divers have searched for wreckage for over a century, but the Mediterranean's shifting sands guard their prize well. The irony, Menkauhor's pyramid was built to endure eternity, yet his sarcophagus meant to protect him in the afterlife now lies in a watery grave, its exact location as mysterious as the pharaoh's own reign. Now shift the scene to Hawara, where Herodotus once stood in awe of a labyrinth so vast it surpassed even the pyramids. Built by Amenemhat III in the 12th dynasty, this sprawling complex allegedly held 3,000 chambers, half underground, half above, connected by winding passages that confused even those who entered willingly. Herodotus claimed it housed sacred crocodile tombs and halls lined with towering columns, while later Roman historians likened it to a maze designed to disorient grave robbers. But by the time Flinders Petrie surveyed the site in 1888, only a few limestone slabs remained. Where did it go? The answer is as practical as it is heartbreaking. Roman emperors quarried Hawara's labyrinth for building materials, carting its stones off to construct new cities. Later, Nile floods buried what little survived under layers of silt. Modern radar scans reveal ghostly outlines of walls beneath the earth, but the labyrinth's grandeur exists only in Herodotus' vivid descriptions. Some archaeologists argue it was more temple than tomb, a spiritual hub for rituals lost to time. Others believe it served as an administrative center, its maze-like design meant to symbolize the journey to the afterlife. What binds these two treasures together isn't just their Egyptian origins, it's the cruel twist of history. Menkauhor's sarcophagus survived millennia in a sealed pyramid only to be claimed by the sea. Hawara's labyrinth stood as a marvel of the ancient world until it was dismantled brick by brick. One vanished in an instant, the other eroded by centuries of neglect. Yet their legacies endure, reminding us that even the mightiest monuments are at the mercy of time, chance, and the relentless hands of those who forget their worth. When the stock market crashed in 1929, panic swept through America's wealthiest families, but William Andrews Clark, Montana's so-called Copper King, had a plan. The mining tycoon, whose fortune rivaled Rockefeller's, allegedly stashed $7 million in gold coins across his properties, determined to shield his wealth from the collapsing economy. What makes this hoard different from other hidden fortunes? Clark left behind a cryptic diary filled with bizarre annotations, numbers, symbols, and seemingly random land survey notes that generations of treasure hunters have tried and failed to crack. Now, over 90 years later, artificial intelligence might finally hold the key. Clark's obsession with secrecy bordered on paranoia. Unlike his flashy contemporaries, he built no grand vaults. Instead, witnesses claim he ordered trusted employees to bury metal strongboxes under cover of darkness beneath orchards on his California estate. along creek beds near his Montana ranches, even beneath the foundations of buildings he owned in New York. The only clues, pages of his personal journal, recovered after his death in 1925, describing locations with phrases like 30 paces north of the Twisted Oak or where the gray rock meets the spring. For decades, these riddles seemed unsolvable. Then, in 2021, a team of data scientists fed scans of the diary into a machine learning algorithm designed to recognize patterns in historical ciphers. The results were staggering. The AI flagged repeated references to a surveying technique called meets and bounds, an antiquated system that used natural landmarks instead of coordinates. Cross-referencing Clark's notes with old property maps revealed startling overlaps clusters of symbols that matched geological surveys of his land holdings. One entry, previously dismissed as gibberish, turned out to be a shorthand for a now abandoned irrigation ditch on his former ranch near Butte. Ground-penetrating radar surveys there in 2023 detected multiple metallic anomalies at precise depths, though legal disputes with current landowners have stalled excavation. But here's the twist: Clark's treasure might not be where anyone expected. The diary's most perplexing pages describe transactions with private mints, suggesting some coins were custom struck with false dates to avoid tracking. Rare coin experts note that certain $20 gold pieces from the late 1920s exhibit oddities, slightly mismatched dies, unusual alloy blends hinting at a clandestine batch. If these exist, they'd be priceless to collectors, far exceeding their gold value. The real mystery isn't just the treasure's location, but Clark's motive. Was this a billionaire's hedge against economic collapse, a deliberate puzzle for future generations, or something darker? Folklore in Butte whispers that some of those buried boxes weren't filled with gold at all, but damning documents, evidence of bribes, land grabs, or worse. Until someone unearths the truth, the Copper King's legacy remains half fortune, half ghost story, his final laugh echoing through every unsolved page of that enigmatic diary. The crown of Bolesław the Brave wasn't just a symbol of Polish sovereignty. It was a physical manifestation of a kingdom's defiance. Forged in the 11th century for Poland's first crowned king, this golden diadem embedded with gemstones represented the nation's hard-won independence from the Holy Roman Empire. But in 1038, Bohemian Duke Bretislaus I sacked the royal treasury in Gniezno, carrying off not just the crown but sacred relics, swords, and even the doors of the cathedral itself. The message was clear: stripping a nation of its symbols was as devastating as burning its cities. Yet while most of the plunder was melted down or scattered, whispers persisted that the crown survived hidden, not destroyed. Centuries later, those whispers led to Krakow's Wall Cathedral, where a tantalizing theory emerged during 20th century renovations. Workers restoring the chapel's walls uncovered odd hollow spaces behind the masonry, narrow voids that matched medieval descriptions of secret compartments used to safeguard treasures during invasions. Archivists pored over centuries-old blueprints, discovering annotations about the king's vault and sealed tributes. Could the Bohemians, fearing reprisal, have secretly returned the crown to Poland as part of a political bargain? Or had Polish loyalists smuggled it back from Prague, hiding it in plain sight within the very walls of their holiest site? The renovation team's discovery of a small, lead-lined cavity in 1961 only deepened the mystery. Inside lay fragments of embroidered cloth and a single sapphire, materials consistent with the crown's known design. But before archaeologists could fully investigate, political pressures forced the project to halt. The communist regime, wary of nationalist fervor, ordered the walls resealed, leaving modern historians with only ground-penetrating radar scans that hint at larger, undisturbed chambers behind the cathedral's choir. What makes this hunt so charged isn't just the potential treasure. It's the irony: a relic stolen to erase a nation's identity might have been waiting beneath their feet all along, concealed not by enemies but by the very hands that rebuilt their sanctuary. Until walls yield their secrets, the crown's fate remains a question etched in stone and speculation. After all, some legacies refuse to stay buried. Deep beneath the swirling currents of the Rhine, where myth and history blur like gold dissolving in river water, lies a legend that has haunted Europe for 1500 years, the treasure of the Nibelungs. This isn't just a story of cursed gold. It's a collision of Viking sagas, Germanic epic poetry, and the real-life downfall of a kingdom. Picture this: in the 5th century, as Attila the Hun's armies tore across Europe, the Burgundian king Gundahar, or Gunther, as Wagner would later name him, faced annihilation. Chronicles suggest he buried his royal hoard rather than let it fall into Hunnic hands. But within decades, that historical tragedy was twisted into something darker, richer: the saga of Siegfried, a dragon-slaying hero, and a ring that doomed everyone who touched it. The myth took its most famous form in Wagner's Ring Cycle, where the Rheingold becomes a cosmic symbol of greed and power. Yet the real treasure might be far less magical, but no less fascinating. Archaeologists have long scoured the Rhine's banks near Worms, where Gundahar's capital once stood, searching for clues. In 1962, a dredging operation unearthed 5th-century weapons and shattered Roman glassware fragments of a court wealthy enough to match the legends. But the prize, a trove of Burgundian gold coins or intricate fibulae, still eludes discovery. What makes this treasure unique is its double life. As history, it's a snapshot of a people fleeing annihilation. As myth, it's a cautionary tale about the price of obsession. The Nibelungenlied, a medieval German epic, describes the hoard as so vast it took 12 wagons to haul it away, yet it brought only bloodshed. Modern scholars suspect the real treasure was modest by comparison, perhaps hidden in a riverbank or sealed in a cave as the Huns closed in. But the legend's endurance raises a tantalizing question. Did storytellers exaggerate a real king's lost wealth, or was the tale a warning about the dangers buried in all that glitters? Perhaps the most haunting twist lies in the landscape itself. Near the town of Lorch, locals still point to a cliff called the Drachenfels Dragon's Rock, where Siegfried supposedly slew the beast. Coincidentally, it's also where Roman legions once mined gold. That overlap of geology, history, and myth suggests the treasure isn't just lost, it's waiting, half buried in collective memory, for someone to separate the gold from the fairy tale. Until then, the Rhine keeps its secrets just as it has since the Age of Dragons. Deep in the mist-shrouded jungles of southeastern Peru, where the Andes crumble into the Amazon, a legend pulses through the vines and rivers: the lost city of Paititi, last refuge of the Inca. Unlike the stone citadel of Machu Picchu, abandoned but never forgotten, Paititi was said to be actively hidden, a golden sanctuary where Inca nobles fled Spanish conquest with their most sacred treasures. For centuries, explorers dismissed it as myth, until thermal satellite images revealed something astonishing: a grid of geometric anomalies in Peru's Madre de Dios region, hidden under canopy so thick that even modern lidar struggles to penetrate. The shapes were too precise, too symmetrical to be natural. Rectangular formations stretched across valley floors, aligned with celestial patterns the Inca revered. Suddenly, the old stories didn't seem so far-fetched. The evidence isn't just technological, it's etched into living memory. Quechua elders in remote Andean villages still recount oral histories of their ancestors' flight to the Great Hiding Place, where priests smuggled gold not as wealth, but as sacred offerings to the sun god Intai. One particular legend describes a procession carrying the punchao, a solid gold idol representing the dawn, said to radiate light from its gemstone eyes. Spanish chronicles from the 1560s mention interrogations of captured Inca who spoke of a city of mirrors deep in the jungle, where temples were clad in gold sheets so polished they reflected the sky. Modern expeditions have found tantalizing hints. A 17th century missionary's journal describing a golden city beyond the rivers, and a cluster of Inca-style ceramics unearthed near the satellite anomalies stamped with symbols of royalty. Yet the jungle guards its secrets fiercely. In 2008, a team led by French explorer Thierry Jamin claimed to discover a massive pyramidal structure in the region, its terraces obscured by vegetation. Ground surveys revealed walls of fitted stone, a hallmark of Inca engineering, but the Peruvian government halted further exploration, citing environmental and cultural protections. The dilemma is profound. How do we balance the pursuit of knowledge with respect for indigenous beliefs? Some Quechua communities view Paititi as a spiritual sanctuary, not a treasure trove. Disturbing it, they argue, would defy the intentions of those who sought to protect their legacy from plunder. The real enigma of Paititi isn't whether it exists, it's why it remains hidden. Unlike other lost cities swallowed by time or disaster, Paititi was deliberately concealed. The Inca mastered road building across impossible terrain, yet no stone path leads there. They left quipus-knotted accounting cords, yet no records map its location. Perhaps the greatest treasure isn't gold, but the choice to let some mysteries stay buried, waiting for the moment when history and legend finally agree to reveal them. Until then, the jungle keeps its silence, leaving us to wonder what still gleams unseen beneath the green. Archaeology isn't just about shovels and brushes anymore. Today's treasure hunters wield tools that would make Indiana Jones' head spin. Take muon tomography, for instance. This revolutionary technique uses cosmic rays, yes, particles from outer space, to peer deep into pyramids and mountains without disturbing a single stone. Here's how it works. As muons rain down from the atmosphere, they pass through empty spaces easily but slow down when hitting dense materials like gold or stone. By mapping these subtle changes, scientists can create 3D images of hidden chambers. In 2017, researchers used it to uncover a cryptic void in the Great Pyramid of Giza, a space as big as a cathedral hidden for 4,500 years. But muons aren't the only game changers. Laser scanning, or LiDAR, has peeled back entire jungles from the comfort of a helicopter. When drones equipped with LiDAR flew over the Guatemalan rainforest, they revealed a sprawling Maya metropolis with 60,000 structures, a civilization far larger than anyone imagined. And then there's AI cracking codes that have baffled humans for centuries. In 2022, a neural network deciphered fragments of the Herculaneum scrolls, texts charred by Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, by detecting microscopic ink patterns invisible to the naked eye. These technologies aren't just flashy gadgets, they're rewriting history in real time. But with great power comes great debate. Archaeologists like Dr. Sarah Parcak, a pioneer in satellite archaeology, warned that finding treasures is only half the battle. Technology lets us locate sites faster than we can protect them, she explains. Looters armed with cheap LiDAR scanners now raid unprotected ruins before experts can intervene. And then there's the ethical tightrope of excavation. Indigenous groups from Peru to Australia argue that some sites should remain untouched, their secrets guarded by tradition rather than unveiled by algorithms. In Norway, Sami communities blocked ground-penetrating radar scans of ancestral lands, fearing disruption of sacred burial grounds. The dilemma cuts deeper when tech outpaces preservation. Muon scans might reveal a pharaoh's tomb, but opening it could expose fragile paintings to humidity or bacteria. AI can reconstruct a shattered tablet's text, but should we? Some knowledge once lost might have been meant to stay that way. As tools grow more powerful, the line between discovery and disturbance blurs, and the real treasure isn't just what we find, but how wisely we uncover it. After all, the past isn't a puzzle to be solved. It's a story we're still learning to read. Of all the legendary treasures still hidden across the globe, 5 stand out as the most likely to be uncovered next, not just because of their mythical allure, but because of tangible, modern breakthroughs bringing us closer than ever to solving their riddles. At the top of the list, Cleopatra's tomb, long dismissed as lost to the encroaching Mediterranean, now has archaeologists zeroing in on a waterlogged network of tunnels beneath Taposiris Magna. Recent ground-penetrating radar scans have revealed structures eerily matching descriptions of Ptolemaic royal tombs, and in 2022, a team uncovered a sealed passageway etched with Cleopatra's cartouche. The clock is ticking, though rising sea levels and shifting sands threaten to collapse these fragile chambers before they can be fully explored. Then there's Yamashita's gold, the notorious World War II loot stashed somewhere in the Philippines' labyrinthine caves. While generations of treasure hunters left empty-handed, recent declassified military documents and advanced LIDAR surveys have pinpointed underground anomalies in the Cordillera Mountains, unnatural voids that align with wartime accounts of hidden vaults. The challenge: many sites are booby-trapped or obscured by landslides, forcing modern teams to rely on drones equipped with thermal cameras to navigate the danger. Up in Nova Scotia, Oak Island's so-called money pit continues to taunt researchers with fresh clues. The Lagina brothers' ongoing excavations have unearthed 17th-century Spanish coins and human bones carbon dated to the 1400s, evidence that someone went to extraordinary lengths to bury something here. But the real game-changer came in 2021 when sonar imaging detected a massive, man-made cavity 90 feet below the surface, its dimensions matching descriptions of a legendary vault from 18th century diaries. Deep in Peru's Amazon, the lost Inca city of Paititi, long written off as fantasy, has begun yielding physical proof. Satellite imagery shows geometric patterns beneath the canopy near the Mamiria River, and indigenous communities have guided archaeologists to stone terraces and ceremonial plazas consistent with Inca engineering. The clincher, a 2019 expedition, recovered a gold figurine of a llama, a sacred offering often placed at royal retreats. Finally, the Amber Room's fate might soon be settled thanks to a crumbling bunker in Poland. Declassified KGB files from the 1990s hinted at a Nazi convoy diverting to the Owl Mountains as Soviet forces closed in. In 2023, ground-penetrating radar detected metallic echoes beneath a former SS barracks, echoes that match the density of amber panels. With Poland's government greenlighting cautious excavations, the world's most dazzling lost artifact could finally resurface. What ties these 5 treasures together isn't just their value, it's the convergence of technology and tenacity. Each has spent decades as a footnote in history books, only to be thrust back into the spotlight by a combination of scientific innovation and stubborn curiosity. And that's the thrill of the hunt. The past never stays buried forever. Whether it's cosmic ray scans piercing pyramid walls or AI deciphering ancient smuggling routes, the tools we have today are rewriting what's possible, one breakthrough at a time. What is it about lost treasures that captivates us so deeply? Perhaps it's not just the glint of gold or the whisper of forgotten empires. It's the thrill of the unknown, the idea that history still holds secrets waiting to be uncovered. For centuries, explorers and dreamers have chased these echoes of the past, drawn by the possibility that the next shovel of dirt, the next scan of a radar, could rewrite everything we thought we knew. And that fascination isn't confined to far-off jungles or sunken ships. Hidden stories are everywhere, maybe even in your own backyard. Think about the legends tied to your region. Every culture has them. A cache of Civil War gold buried by retreating soldiers, a pioneer's lost stash tucked into a hollow tree, or even a family heirloom hidden during turbulent times and never recovered. These stories aren't just idle folklore, they're threads connecting us to the past. And with today's tools, from affordable metal detectors to apps that overlay historical maps onto modern landscapes, anyone can become part of the search. But remember, great discoveries come with responsibility. If you stumble upon something significant, reporting it to local archaeologists or historians ensures the story is preserved, not just the artifact. This isn't the end of the hunt, far from it. For every treasure still lost, there's another that's been miraculously found. Paintings stolen by the Nazis recovered in attic corners, manuscripts presumed burned discovered in monastery vaults, even entire cities like Troy, once dismissed as myth until someone dared to dig deeper. These rediscoveries remind us that history isn't static. It's alive, evolving with each new clue. So keep looking, stay curious, and if you've enjoyed this journey through history's greatest mysteries, don't forget to join us next time when we'll unveil the incredible stories behind treasures that were lost and then found against all odds. The past is always closer than it seems. You just have to know where to look. Before you go, take a look at this, an enigma straight out of the 16th century. Tucked in the corner of a weathered Portuguese navigational chart, sketched in fading ink, there's a single crimson X marking an unnamed island somewhere in the Atlantic. No coordinates, no legend, just this blood-red cross, as if someone dared not write its secrets plainly. The map itself survived wars, shipwrecks, and centuries of obscurity before surfacing in a Lisbon archive, but the island. It doesn't match any known port of call from the age of exploration. Here's where you come in. Zoom in on the coastline, see those jagged contours, the odd curve of the bay. Could this be a lost pirate haven, a forgotten trading post, or perhaps even a mischarted landfall that never made it into the history books? Drop your theories in the comments below. The most compelling answer, whether it's backed by historical sleuthing or sheer creative brilliance, gets a spotlight in our next video. Think you've cracked it? Maybe you recognize those cliffs from another sailor's log, or you've spotted a clue hidden in the map's watermark. One thing's certain, that X wasn't drawn for decoration. Someone somewhere wanted us to keep looking, so where does it lead? The hunt